Mary Margaret Olahan took that picture of Donald Trump signing the executive order preserving women's spaces in sports from men and boys. I'm joined by Selena Zito. Selena, what'd you make of that video by Mary Margaret Olahan? Ulahan, I can't say her name.
So it just, one of those frustrating things to me is that people didn't understand how much that meant to suburban moms across the Midwest, throughout Appalachia, across Pennsylvania, that and also RFK's discussion about healthy eating. This is really important to parents. There are parents out there that sit on the sidelines and on soccer fields every weekend. They take their kids to practice, their daughters, and the idea that they would be competing with boys and against boys on the soccer field, on the lacrosse field, at a swim meet was so frustrating for them because they knew that would stop their ability to be able to apply and go for college scholarships for athletics. Look, my daughter went to college on her soccer foot. I don't think I'd been able to afford it had she not. So I understood it when moms talked about it.
Oh, and I got to say, I want to widen the scope out. As a dad, I went to
Yeah.
hundreds of swim meets, and my daughter played softball, and my daughter played soccer, and I was there at all of them. Then she ran track, and I ran at all of them. She didn't play water polo like my boys, and thank goodness boys aren't allowed to play girls water polo because that's a really rough sport and it's
Yeah.
grabby. I mean, it's wicked tough underneath the water. But what I don't understand, Selena, it's a 90-10 issue. It's not anti-trans to say girls sports and girls spaces, women's sports and women's spaces are for girls and women. It's not. It's nature's law and law of nature and nature's God. It's not really controversial.
It isn't controversial. And there were so many Democrats or people that were hesitant about voting for Trump who looked at this issue and then other issues that the Democrats were embracing that they felt was way out there, like way out in left field. And they couldn't understand why they were so strident and made these issues so important over common sense ways of looking at it's women's sports. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Title IX happened, right?
50 years ago, 1972, Richard Nixon signed it. We had a big celebration at the Nixon Library. But Selena, here's what I want to get to. Yesterday, I listened to a podcast. I think it was the National Review podcast, the editors, and they said the only common sense Democrats or the counter revolution against crazy is happening in Pennsylvania with Josh Shapiro and John Fetterman. And so you're at ground zero again. And interesting,
Yeah.
it's an old blue state that became a red state, and Ohio went ruby red, but Pennsylvania's just kind of light red. Can Fetterman and Shapiro save the Democratic Party?
No, because neither of them would be allowed to make it through a primary process if they were to seek a presidential, right? So at that level, yeah, it's really challenging for me to think that that could happen. Incidentally, I just interviewed both of them in the past 2 days, along with JD Vance, and you're right. While Shapiro and Fetterman have vastly different ways of approaching politics and often differ on some things, they both are very pragmatic, very common sense, and they offer the today's young Democrats a glimpse into what the glory days of the Democratic Party look like.
I think actually, and I'm not pandering to Josh Shapiro. He's hard to book on this show, but I'll try and get him back. And I actually think if he throws his hat in after a big reelection win, if he gets a big reelection win, Democrats have to look hard at him like they looked hard at Bill Clinton in 1992, or they're going to get wiped out again. If they go to the left with AOC, they're going to get J.D. Vance or whoever the nominee is going to crush AOC because that's not 90% of the country.
I don't disagree with you. However, if you turn on social media or you turn on the local or the various cable news networks, there is zero evidence that the Democrats have understood why they lost and have understood a message to take forward, and that's their challenge, and that's their problem. You look at yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Chuck Schumer was doing some sort of weird chant. There are these protests in the streets, about illegals being deported, in particular, a focus on criminal illegals, and they're not understanding that these are the reasons you lost, because your message did not was not cohesive with the rest of the country, including your people within your own party.
Yeah, if you're more concerned about keeping your interest group on top of a minority party than you are in expanding a minority party to a majority party, that's the way you act. Last question, Selena. I'm just gathering up reactions to the Politico story. $35 million this year. There's another story that the New York Times got millions. I'm actually shocked. That's the biggest journalism scandal, I think, of my lifetime, if it turns out to be true.
So I was on the road all day today, interviewed DeWine and Senator Marino. So I really have not taken a look at it. I think that, what has to be looked at, I suspect, is this are these subscriptions. A lot of these congressional offices, I mean, a million years I worked in a congressional office, and they did have subscriptions. So I think it needs to be more than just a line item. I think that the first thing to do is to take a look at that, and what was, were employees subscribing to Politico? I know Politico Pro is very expensive.
Yeah, I don't buy
So,
that. But I'll tell you, in my first contract with Salem, way back in 2000, there was a line item in there that they had to pay for the hotline because it was $4,000 a year. But in the day before social media, you needed the hotline.
Right.
Right. But that's not now. Nobody needs
Right.
Politico Pro. Nobody. Zero. Selena Zito, always good to see you. Follow her on X at Zito Selena.